What's up, gunks and gamers? Before we hop into this video, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Bats and all the people who came over after watching my episode of the gtubers podcast. I had a ton of fun filming it, and it was a fantastic episode, so if you haven't seen that, go watch it. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Without further ado, let's hop into this story.
With my swag, he ain't like that. Getting all his cash, they ain't like that. You ain't spinning racks, you ain't like that. I'm just spinning facts, they ain't like that.
So this story signifies the beginning of my cocaine era. Now I feel like if you're a late stage user, everybody has had their cocaine era. Now for me, my cocaine era started pretty similar to a lot of other people. Now it started pretty early. This happened my sophomore year of high school. So my sophomore year of high school was the first year where I was at this new school that I would later end up doing all 4 years and dropping out of. And to start this story, I suppose I should start at the beginning of the day. So this one particular morning, I wake up and I'm already pretty deep in my drug use. At this point, I was on random different pills pretty much almost every day. There was a few days where I didn't have any access to anything, but I was on a lot of different pills and I was smoking a decent amount of weed around this time. This is when I had really started getting into weed. So of course, the first thing I'm thinking when I wake up is I need to get high and take a shower and get ready for school. So I had a little bit of shitty weed. I kind of smoked that, chilled, wasn't too high. I was just kind of chilling, you know what I mean? And then I get into my stash. So at this time, I kind of just had like a little area where I would keep a variety of different drugs, right? So I end up grabbing 2 Vicodins and a couple fake perks. Now these fake perks weren't exactly the fake perks that everybody is smoking now. At this time, these were the perks that were super easy to dissolve in water. I don't think they were fentanyl. Back then they were using like some sort of research chemical. This is when they were still pretty blue, before every perk you got was like a fentanyl color, you know what I mean? Sort of a teal color. I also had some Xans. And I had like 3.5 of them, so I decided to take one of them with me. I wasn't sure if I was gonna do it or not, but just in case. So I crush up some Vicodin while I'm getting ready to take a shower, and I snort basically the whole pill. I left a little line for right when I get out of the shower. So I'm feeling pretty good already. I'm feeling pretty geeked. I'm busting pretty hard. So I take my shower, pop out, and do that last little line, and kind of get dressed and get ready for the day, right? So during this time, I was a pretty heavy lean drinker, and I would have styrofoam cups all the time. So I grab a double cup that I had already used that had like a little bit of lean residue on the very bottom of it, and I fill it up with water. And I basically chug it just to get that little bit of codeine in me, you know what I mean? After that, I fill it up with water again, and I decide to drop these 2 fake perks in here. Now, originally I was just going to drop one, and I was going to pop one, but I decided to drop both of them in the drink so I could just sip all day, right? Then as I'm getting ready to leave, I'm kind of debating if I really want any Xan or not. So I was halfway on kind of just leaving it at the house and shit. But I decided to break a piece off of the Xan. They were yellow bars. I broke a piece off and just popped it, and then I just put the rest in between the 2 styrofoam cups. And right about this time, my mom's like, alright, we need to go. We're gonna be late if we don't get to school. So I was like, bet. And I hop in the car and we pull up to school. I have these pills in my water. I'm geeking pretty hard, but I'm able to hide it pretty well. So I pop out and I get to walking. And when I get to walking, I'm starting to feel this bar a little bit. I'm like, oof, I'm feeling that shit in my legs. I'm feeling the perky legs a little bit too, because I had been hitting the cup. Nothing crazy, but I was sipping a little bit. I end up getting in the school, and before classes start, everybody just kind of hangs out in the cafeteria and talks and whatnot. And I pull up, and one of my homegirls, first quarter off rip, is just being annoying as fuck. Like, she just being loud, she just doing too much, like awesome, it's 7 in the morning type shit. And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be a rough day. I think I need to get higher than this. I go into the bathroom and I kind of just am hanging out so that I can be alone. But also, I'm trying to decide like whether or not I want to do more Xan or not. So I eventually decide against it and just hit my cup really fucking hard. So don't forget, I got 2 fake perks in the motherfucking double cups, right, with the water. And I hit the cup pretty hard. I drink a good amount of it, like maybe like a third, a little bit more than that. And I walk out of the bathroom and almost instantly I'm buzzing. So I get to my second hour and I'm just kind of chilling and passing out, like not really doing much. Like I had just been like geeking in the bathroom for the first 2 hours of the day, and I get the second hour and I just end up passing the fuck out in class. And it kind of gets through the day, and eventually lunch comes around. So at lunch, I go to kick it with a couple of my other homegirls and all that shit, and I pull up to the table and they're kind of like talking. They're a little sus. It seems like I could feel like there was a different energy, you know what I mean, than normal. And one of them is like, hey, I found this coke in the bathroom and I want to sell it, but I don't know how much it's worth. So they pull out a 30, right? So I was like, all right, let me taste it just so I can see what it's like. So I taste it and I was like, oh my god, this is some good fucking cocaine. Like, this is some fucking Pablo shit, right? So I had done coke a couple times before this, nothing real crazy, and they knew that. That's why they kind of asked me. But this was the first time I had coke that like was good, you know what I mean? And when you haven't had a lot of good coke, you eventually do some good coke and it's like, holy shit, nah, this is good coke. Like, you just know. And eventually I'm like, so after I taste it, I tell them, you know, I don't really know, I can't really tell off of one taste, I'm gonna go hit a little bump. And they were like, yeah, just please don't do it all. And I was like, bet, don't worry about it. So I hit a bump and I'm already like pretty geeking off of all this other shit. Like, I'm pretty fucking high. I had almost finished my cup at this point and I'm like kind of slurring when I'm talking. I'm feeling pretty good. So I hit this line and the coke just like, boom, it's there, it's in me, and it hit me hard as fuck off of one bump. I was geeking. I was like, holy shit, this is nuts. So after I hit that bump, I'm like, I gotta figure out how to finesse the coke off the girls, you feel me? It just so happens that I had $5 in my pocket. And I was like, you think I could make them believe that this is worth $5? I bet you they would. So I come back to the lunch table and I'm like, I don't know, it was kind of mid. It's worth like $5, maybe $8 at most. And they were like, really? And I was like, yeah, it's not the best. I have $5 if you just want to get rid of it. I'll buy it for $5. And they're like, yeah, I guess. So after lunch and everything, I'm like, damn, bro, I should get fucked up. So I go into the bathroom and I'm like, all right, let's get devious. So I still have that Xan, right? So I still have 3/4 of a Xan. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do a bunch of coke and I'm gonna snort this Xan. So I crushed up the Xan, and I mixed it with every line of coke I did. And if you've ever crushed up a Xan, sorry, I hit the mic again. But if you've ever crushed up a Xan, you know you get a decent amount of powder from it, like a pretty good amount. So I end up almost doing all of the coke, mixing it with the Xan. I wanted some Xan and coke with every line I took. Now, obviously, everything I have done in this day was incredibly dangerous, but mixing something like coke with all the downers I was on is extremely dangerous. And I gotta say, even if you are a full-blown junkie, don't do this. I was like really on the verge of death when I was doing this. And I got like a 10 left, right? So that means I did a 20 with my Xans. For one of my first times doing coke real heavily. Before this, I had done like maybe 3 lines at a time at most. This was such a different experience from that. I was fucking speeding, baby. I had been in the bathroom for 2 hours, right? So it's the last 2 classes of the day, and I end up showing up to them, and as I get into the classroom, I just start like full like Xanax cringe walking around, like full like just not making any sense, just fucked up. And I went to public school, so the teacher did not give a fuck. They were just like, this is an average Tuesday, alright? I'm just sitting in the back of the class and everybody's like, bro, you're so fucked up right now. Like, dude, you look so fucked up right now. Like, just over and over again. And I was like, yeah, no shit. And then eventually the like, oh shit, I need to do coke feeling hits me. And this was like the first time I had ever had that feeling. I had heard people talk about it, but until you experience it, you don't really get it. I'm like, miss, I gotta go to the bathroom. And she's like, can you hold it? And I was like, nope. She's like, well, you're gonna have to. I was like, I ain't holding shit, alright? And I just decided to dip. And she was real upset. She tried to get me back in the classroom. She called the principal, all that shit. And I was like, leave me alone, basically. And I end up kind of evading getting in trouble, really. And I go to the bathroom and I start doing more coke. And as I'm doing this coke, I start to get sick. Like all this shit just floating around in my stomach. So I'm throwing up for like an hour after this. Like I'm just vomiting like over and over and over again. Like it was so fucking painful. And eventually I finished throwing up and I go back to class and the teacher's like, you think I don't know what you're up to? And I was like, huh? You know what I mean? Just geeking. She's like, she kind of takes me aside and she's like, I know what you're on. I've been told by a couple students what's going on. Nothing really ended up coming of it. You know, I didn't really get in trouble or nothing, but I was definitely way too high at school.
In a nice house, but got not one plan to go get that house. I don't got a loan, bitch, I made that. I'ma go spend it cause I made that. I broke the bank when it bought.
But yeah, guys, thank you for watching. That's basically the whole story. I kind of just after that went home, played some video games and went to sleep and did it all again the next day. But without further ado, love you guys, enjoy the fucking day, and don't get hit by a car, bus, plane, train, or any other automobile. Adios.
I'm really GTA, they the same. I came up on pork fried rice from Kim's. Me and ride around in the caravan. When the hell them perks gon' come? In the driveway, bout to be up. Neff outside every time the script come. Bitch didn't pay, they shut lip up. Lip sucking like get some.